everyone, what's going on? Good evening or good morning or wherever you are around the world. Welcome. And okay, so this is going to be a little bit wide ranging, and I like to check in every once in a while. A lot of people will kind of on my various social sites or just personally sort of ask me what I'm thinking, and obviously I discuss and analyze a lot of different things. Where I'm at right now, so there's a lot of changes that have happened. There's a lot of things that have been going on in the world for the last 4 years, to say the least, right? And we've had a lot of discussions. To me, I've seen a lot of things in the news, and I haven't weighed in for a while about where we're at and where we may be going on a range of issues. And here's what I mean. We have things like, are we doing the remote work? Are we doing the return to work? That's a big discussion that on LinkedIn with my LinkedIn audience, in my opinion. First of all, everything's all my opinion only. Not alleged any facts, not cast any aspersions. Please check all the disclaimers on all my various sites. So that's something that's going on. What about now we're seeing this? I mean, I've studied economics, right? And did a fair amount of law and economics. I haven't, nothing super extensive in terms of the economic stuff. I mean, but I've had I took economics at Berkeley and law and economics classes at Berkeley. And I like to think that I've also taken it for my MBA classes at Johns Hopkins. So I like to think I know a few things about that. And now, there used to be a definition of recession, and now, we're talking about, is there a recession or not, right? I mean, if I go to, these are interesting times that we live in my opinion. I go here and I put this in Google, are we in a recession? And so I mean, listen, we've had 2 quarters of negative GDP, and so, that's a whole nother lane of discussion right there, right? So, to me, that was always, again, what you learn, in my opinion. And we have different experts that weigh in on that, and I'm not saying that, but we have different experts that weigh into that. But that was always sort of the definition that I understood. But maybe things can evolve, I guess. I don't know. But so we're having this discussion. Are we in a recession or not? So are we returning to work? Are we in recession? Interest rates are continue to go up. So this is why I'm going to try to focus this as much as possible. There's a lot of things that go on in my brain, in the super genius brain here. There's a lot of things, like I'll think about things, I'll have an instinctual sort of take on it before I can even fully articulate it. But I love to put different things together. And I'd like to fancy myself as someone that's a bit of a visionary. I can see business models and things, out, sort of a futurist, I guess. I guess that's pretty fair, in my opinion. So I'm really good at that type of stuff, sort of seeing what's coming, putting a lot of disparate things together, having cross skills. Again, I don't want to get distracted on that and about me, but I'm just saying I see a lot of different things happening here. And I'm listening to a lot of different thought leaders out there. And I think that there's dynamic change that's happening right now. I think that the economy there's a lot of issues globally, right? There's a lot of things happening. I mean, we've got energy prices, we've got interest rates going up. We see movement in the housing market. First of all, I'm not giving anyone any kind of advice, financial or otherwise. Everything you do is at your own risk, of course. And I see different experts or different commentators that are saying, hey, do this, hey, do that. Some people here, I mean, I'll just pull this up here. I had something, where did I see this? I think this is on Fox Business, and this is on the economy. Quote, headline, Stanley Druckenmiller sees high chance of recession in 2023. And I think if you drill down into that, it's talking about this extended period of, financial or market trouble, right? I mean, you see some of that. You also see, different issues here in, if you look at Bloomberg, you look at CNBC, you see a lot of different stories out there. You've seen markets have gone down. The Dow's been down. The NASDAQ year to date, Dow's down, NASDAQ's down. I thought I saw something just significant declines. I may be wrong. I've been really busy working and stuff. But, I mean, so that's pretty interesting. Let me see if I can pull up some kind of chart here, some kind of year-to-date chart here. But, where's it going? I mean, and again, I'm not here to prognosticate or make any kind of calls or anything like that, but there's a lot of change in the environment right now, in my opinion, a tremendous amount of change. And what do you do, right, as an individual? I'm also seeing things at the micro level. Kind of sounding like Gary Vee a little bit maybe, but I'm seeing things at the micro level in terms of on a day-to-day basis, and even just in my my own life and reflecting and stuff. Like, hey, how do I want to approach work? And what do I want to do? And how am I trying to build this, for lack of a better word, this JDV brand and JDV business entity type of conglomerate or empire, wannabe, whatever. Right now, we gotta scale it all up, right? But where am I trying to go? What's the strategy? What's the tactics to? I've been working on an awful lot, and that's cool. I know what I'm doing right now, and I have a mission, and very happy with the the corporate team and ownership and everything, and I've got some different projects I'm working on. I'll reveal more of that later. I've revealed some of that since, but all the stuff that I had done before, it's interesting. This is the prognostication. This is the sort of future casting. Everything that I would put up on, well, not everything, in my opinion, a significant amount of what I put up on LinkedIn and the things that we're trying to do and the why, that's all played out. Right? I mean, if you see that, you can see that. It's not immediate and it's not completely linear, but it's all played out. So I think a lot of people, even in conversations with my relatives, it's like, how many hours do you want to work? How many? Do you want to work for yourself? Do you want to work for someone else? Do you want to do a little bit of different things? People talk about. I saw something here. I think it was something about New York City. New York City is only like half the offices or a little bit less than half the offices are occupied. I think I saw that. I think that may have been, I think I saw that on Bloomberg. Let me see if I can find that site. So that's really that's really interesting. If things get worse, right? So let's kind of spin it forward. I have sort of right here. Work shift. This is work shift headline. More New Yorkers working from home again after Labor Day office push. This is Bloomberg, Bloomberg.com, right? Office occupancy had surged earlier this month. Return office. Okay, so this is by Matthew Boyle, September 27, 2022. And I think it's, quote, New York offices were 46.1% full the week ending September 21st. So, I mean, think about that. That's super significant, right? And again, I apologize. You have to kind of bear with me here because I've got a lot of things running in my head, but this is kind of the way I think, but I'll try to pull it and tie it all together. That's super significant. Where are we at? Where are we going with this? Again, energy prices rising, inflation, big time inflation, food price inflation. We've got all kinds of things happening globally, politically. We've got things happening politically here in the United States. We've got a big midterm election coming up in November. And I think people are reassessing a lot of things. We have the whole, I think even people are looking at, hey, there's more discussions now about how much education do you need? Is it worth it to go to college? I'm someone that really believes in education, obviously, for my family and everything like that. But people are certainly looking for a path to success and also, return on investment, right? And also just having something that's commonsensical. I mean, you have to have everybody is trying to figure out what, I think this all comes back to the very basic principles, right? I mean, to me, this stuff can get very complicated, but you can also break it down to the very simple. And it's just the same thing in business. It is, you have to add value for people. It's really that simple. You have to add value for people. You have to, the more value that you can add, then the more benefits, compensation, et cetera, that you can get out of it. So I think that if you look at and I think you've seen some innovation and dynamism in education. I think you've seen that. Maybe you see it more or faster at the executive education level, or some of these things where there needs to be a little bit more responsive, slightly more responsive to the public. But I think you're seeing a lot of even the major stuff change. I've seen changes at my alma mater, Berkeley Law School. I'm seeing changes at Johns Hopkins. Business School. I'm seeing changes out there with Stanford. I'm seeing Northwestern. I'm seeing a lot of these brands that are doing some things, and I think that speed is increasing. People are trying to figure out what makes sense. 2 years ago, right? It was a lot of talk about blockchain and crypto. That's still there, but those markets. Look at what's happened in crypto, and we're talking about that. I've always said, in my opinion, I was blockchain bullish. And again, I'm not making any calls. I'm not making any kind of this is just a term of a phrase. And everything you do, again, it's at your own risk, not giving any advice, etc. But I was more sort of interested in blockchain, but very skeptical on the crypto stuff. And I think that there was a quote out there, and I'm going to get it a little bit wrong. I don't want to get into that, but I think there's some, and it all comes back to this. There's some people that believe that it's all about narratives, it's the who's winning the narrative, or it's about narrative, or, counter narratives and all this stuff. And that's fine. Someone that's all about communication and marketing. Sure, I'm down with a lot of the power of storytelling and the power of narratives, but I'm also all about reality, right? It's like I say in sales. I like to sell, but you got to sell real, right? You have to have there's got to be a there, right? You can't have sizzle without the steak, or whatever the phrase would be, and so again, what does that come back to? I think that if something's not sustainable, it's not sustainable, right? If something doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. Reality is going to overtake narratives and ideology and all that type of stuff. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, the economy, markets, and business and everything, it's us. It's people, right? Again, complex, simple, right? It's people. And what are you trying to do, right? A job isn't great if you're totally miserable at it, and etc. So how do you, how do you exchange value like that? How do you give people what they want and then are able to get, valuable participation out of them, right? And I think we focus so much and you hear this in automotive about, customer experience and the customer, and that's great. That's awesome. I'm down. But what about the employee experience? What about figuring out how to meet your employees where they're at, or trying to get some kind of partnership stuff. And I'm not criticizing anyone. I'm challenging us to think outside of the box, because in dynamic ways, in ways that maybe are uncomfortable for business leaders, and I think that's kind of where we're at, right? Maybe that's a good way sort of headline or one of the themes of this discussion is I think we're in a period of dynamic change. And I think we're in a period where we have to be uncomfortable. We have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? And I know someone else said that. I can't remember who, and I'd love to cite them or something. But it's a common phrase out there. But I think that, it's another saying, right? The only thing constant in life is change. And I think we're seeing dynamic change, and that was already in the mix, right? If you looked at, there was a chart somewhere, or one of those infographics things of the rapidity of change and how fast things change. And I gotta try to look up my socials, because I can only get the just so you know out there, if you're looking, I can only take the real-time comments here on YouTube. Let me check my LinkedIn and Facebook to see if there's anyone that's sort of trying to talk to me that way. I'll try to be attuned to it. And yeah, so the rapidity of change is something like the major inventions. It was once every 1,000 years, 100 years, and now it's like almost every day, like major invention. I could get that slightly wrong, but the gist of it is correct. So you've got this rapidity of change that's happening, and that has been happening. I think that has been hyper accelerated. But what is also interesting is, and I think people know, if you follow me, you kind of know where I stand. And I've gone to, I want to try to keep politics out of this, but I think, let me put it this way. I think that a lot of these theories, I was in Berkeley a long time, a lot of these theories, a lot of this stuff that was in the academics, institutions, in the classroom stuff, has now been implemented some of this stuff globally. And you have to say, well, okay, what's the reality? How are those results looking? How is that working out? Is that working out? And it comes back to, you have to have policies. And I've said this, and this was said on TV not that long ago too. But I mean, it's you. Well, I'm gonna edit myself a little bit. Things have to be beneficial to people, right? Representatives have to represent people, right? There has to be some kind of proximity between what people want and policy over a period of time, right? And then there's a discussion. You can discuss about what that should be, but as the if you will, the political physics of it, I mean, that's kind of how, right? That should go in democracy, representative systems, right? In my opinion. And I'm definitely a political expert. I can get into that resume, but I don't want to weigh this video down with that. I think it's the same thing with business. I mean, it's the same thing with almost everything. Again, you have to add value. If I'm trying to set up John's lemonade stand, I have to have decent lemonade that people want to buy. Right? I mean, if my lemonade's totally watered down, or if it's spoiled, or whatever it is, or I'm charging too much, if it doesn't make sense to add value to you, or substitutes, or etc., then I don't think that's super sustainable. I think it's the same thing in business. I think that people are looking at this and say, okay, well, listen, from a worker standpoint, it's like, okay, well, how long am I going to be here? Is there a pension? Is there, you look at all the it's a cost benefit. And I think you looked at everything. I think you're seeing change happen so rapidly now. And that's another thing. All these things, whether you call it, there's different theories on this, but everything affects everything, kind of, to varying degrees, right? And there's different ways to say that, and different, phraseology on that. And I don't want to get, down that too much. But when you have this kind of rapidity of change, when you have this speed of change, that gets people thinking, well, wait a minute. If things are going to change so much, if a pandemic can hit and, I may lose my job, or the company may shut down, or the restaurant that has been in the family for 3 generations is suddenly gone, what do I really want out of life? How do I look at this employment situation? And this is all, I'm just throwing out some hypothetical stuff, just to get us thinking here. If loyalty is only one way, and I'm not saying that's a totally separate statement from the other stuff. And I'm just throwing some things out there. Where you see a lot of things on LinkedIn about, or others, servant leader. Okay, well, okay, cool. But what is that? How are you implementing that? What does that mean for you or for your company? What does that mean for your employees, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's the thing. At the end of the day, if you're a servant leader or whatever the phraseology of the moment is, it's not judged by you as the leader. It's not judged by LinkedIn or how many of your buddies or vendors or whatever like that. It's judged by your employees. It's judged by your reports or, all that type of stuff. I mean, how do they feel about it? Do they think that you're doing? So again, value added, return on investment, if you will. It's got to be some, something that's sustainable. So I think in this mix, my sense of it is to try to wind this thing down, and we'll pick up some more of these things. I'm going to be doing more shows and stuff, and I've got some cool things planned, and this is me right now. I mean, I'll talk about other stuff later, but there's some great things in the mix. I've been working hard on stuff. If you've been following my stuff, it's been fun. It's been very engaging. I knew I had to sort of set the foundation on that. There's a lot of things, and I've been around some great people, which is great too, So trying to do some big things, and we'll see. So far, so good. But I'm also talking, we're here. I've been able to spend a couple days with the family and talking to my wife, and what's the next step? What do we want to do, right? And I think a lot of people are having those conversations. What's going to make us happy? Where are we trying to be on this? So I'm going to throw some things out there. I think election-wise here in the U.S., right now, everything can change, right? The old saying, a week is a lifetime in politics, right? Right now, today, I see the Republicans winning the House easily. I see the Republicans probably winning the Senate. I think they pick up a couple seats there. I think they pick up a couple seats, couple governorships. And I think that's going to change the dynamic substantially. If that happens, if the Republicans win both houses of Congress and pick up governorships. Now, on the one hand, somewhat expected in a midterm election. On the other hand, when things are so close right now, I think you're going to have some Democrats. It's going to be very interesting to see what the Democrats do. Very interesting to see what the talk is about 2024. Very interesting to see a lot of things. I mean, do we see a policy shift? We've seen some things happening globally. And I think that there is a discussion. If you see what's going on in a state like, and again, I don't want to get into that's a whole different discussion, but I'm saying this definitely, this entire paradigm, it's not really, is that the, that kind of works. It doesn't totally work, but we'll go with it for now. These themes, paradigms, these themes are impacting all these things. Corporate work, are we returning to work or are we doing the remote thing? Why do we have to be in the office if I don't have to be in the office? But maybe I should be in the office for certain things, right? Similarly, you've got a style of governors, a style of political leadership that you see in states like Virginia and Florida, here where I'm at right now with Governor DeSantis. And you contrast that against, maybe what's happening in California or other places. And it's not, I don't want to get into the left-right thing. I'm just trying to say that I think people are looking at that and saying, now you're seeing a lot. They're trying to figure out what makes sense for them. I think we've seen different things in different places as well, right? Around the world. And now people are thinking, well, what works best for me, right? In my family. And we're seeing a lot of people that have moved to Texas and moved to Florida. So there's that. Similarly, on the company side, in the economic side, you're seeing a lot of people, that there's been this push on entrepreneurship, which I think makes a lot of sense, right? It wasn't that there's been massive most of the world has an entrepreneurial type of setup. I mean, we've only had these big mega companies for not that long, right? That is a very new thing relatively to the history of people on the planet. And I think you're going to see a lot more entrepreneurship. I think that people are really rethinking their relationship with work and how that makes sense. Does that mean everyone's going to be an entrepreneur and a CEO? No, I don't see that, because I do think that there is going to be these lanes, obviously, and there's all kinds of different reasons why economies of scale and all kinds of different things that you need, network effects for bigger companies and stuff. But I do think that there's a lot of opportunity out there for entrepreneurship. I do think that the economic, future here immediately, it looks a bit rough. It looks right now. But I do think also that the reason I threw the political thing in there, I think things can change very rapidly. So you look at where there are certain business, fluctuations and stuff, but you see where we were at, economically a couple years ago. You see where we are at now. It can show you how fast things can change, plus or minus. I will throw this out there too, though. I mean, I see a lot of these forecasts are just totally, gloom and doom, and it's everything's, I saw something, everything's overvalued, or not everything. That's that. Again, I'll just go to that. I'll revise and amend my remarks there. That is kind of a gloom and doom, and for lack of a better word, there's potentially a big crash coming, and then that's my paraphrase of what I thought I saw out there. And I'm not saying that. Look, I think inflation is not good. I can tell you that. High energy prices aren't good. I mean, everything, so many things that take energy, transport, etc., right? I mean, I think things are going to get pretty tough. But I also am a just natural optimist. I'm a natural optimist. I think I saw, and I'll give you an example that I just pulled up, and then we'll wind it down here. But I want to throw a couple things on the table here. And I'll summarize everything, kind of what I think. I've thrown a bunch of things out there. Almost, it's not, I didn't have time to put this all together. And again, these are things that come into my head as a super genius. And I kind of feel it, like I said, in my gut or in my brain before I can kind of fully articulate it. And I want to share it with you, because sometimes the speed of me being able to put it together and getting it to you first, to do a full presentation would take a long time, right? And I want to be able to communicate with my audience. It's been a while since we went live, so I want to do that. But I'll throw something out there and I'll summarize kind of what I think, where I think things are going to go, and we'll get to that in a second. And this is really interesting, and it just shows you A, about being optimistic, and B, how things can change. And again, I'm not making any comment or call on this or anything. I'm not giving anyone any advice, financial or otherwise. Everything you do is at your own risk. But I pulled this up here, Investors Business Daily. Just pulled it up. Headline, this is by Allison Gatlin, 9/28/2022. Headline, Biogen explodes after potential mega blockbuster Alzheimer drug succeeds. And it basically goes on to say about like this drug that apparently Lecanemab or Mab, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm probably maybe a little bit off on that. But basically it's apparently had pretty great results. And I think, and this is my characterization of it. And I think, let's see, quote, in a phase 3 study, the drug called Lecanemab removed buildup plaque in the brain called beta amyloid. Importantly, this also led to a cognitive benefit for patients with early stage Alzheimer's disease, end quote. And stock went up, et cetera, et cetera. And again, you can read the rest of the article and see what you think about that. But look, that's a huge deal. That's a huge deal, right? I mean, that is a major disease that affects a lot of people. And it just shows you how innovation and technology can just change things immediately. And then what did I say before? Added value. If true, if this works, if it works out, I'm not making any commentary, on anything medically or anything. I'm just reading. I'm reading a news report and I'm reacting to it. If true, that's a huge deal. And you think about that, and I didn't know anything about this yesterday. I didn't know anything about this 2 hours ago. And I just read about this, or 3 hours ago, whatever it is. And I just read about this and I'm like, whoa. So it just shows you that you never know what's coming next. You always have to be prepared. It is about added value. I do think, here's my take in winding it down and wrapping it up. And I'm going to headline a lot of these things. I think that the Republicans are going to win big in the elections. We'll see. I'll have more on them. I may have more on that later. I'm sure I will. And we'll get into the specifics. I think it's both houses. I think that the stuff that I'm seeing, the polling that I'm seeing is favorable on that. And I think that people are just, even beyond the polling, I think when I just talk to people anecdotally, I think that they're like, yeah, I that's where I think it is. No, we'll see. Could be wrong. I think on the economic standpoint, I think it's tough right now. I think it might get even tougher in 2023. I think to the extent that it may get worse after the election. It may get better after the election. And in terms of if there's a big sort of pushback against these policies, and it's like, well, okay, maybe it's time to pivot. We saw that with President Clinton in 1994, right? But I think that whether there is obviously some pain out there in the with the rising interest rates that affect a lot of different industries. So I think that rising interest rates and inflation have been very challenging for so many industries out there. And I talk to people, whether they're in, trucking and shipping, automotive, obviously housing, so many different sectors that are affected by that. But I think that it's going to be challenging, and I think that people are looking at this, and I think that it's one of these things when there's significant change and or significant economic pain or challenges that I think it causes people to reflect and think about a lot of things, right? So that goes back to the return to work and the whole offices and, and entrepreneurship and everything. And I do think that maybe not everyone wants to start their own business, but I think everyone wants to have a, respect and a path to success and roles and a career or work that makes sense for them and is beneficial for them. So I think that employers need to be much more flexible. I think that we're going to see the speed of change increase. I think that we're going to see much more dynamism in a lot of things. In a lot of things. And I think that what's good about this current situation, and you again, cross themes, paradigms, I think that the cards have been laid out, metaphorically speaking, politically, work-wise, in a lot of areas, media. And I think now we're going to see what people choose. We're going to see what people choose. And I'm optimistic about that. So I think in order to, have your employees happy and building strong businesses, you need to add value and you need to be in tune, not just to the consumers, but also to your employees and your partners and etc. How do you continue to grow, scale, evolve, and add value to all those different constituencies, stakeholders, whatever you want to say? And that's a challenge. So I think that there is more that is asked now of business leaders, political leaders, etc. And rather than trying to have a top-down approach, I think it's helpful to have your pulse, to be able to take the pulse of the organization and be able to be nimble and continue to evolve, to continue to add that value. So listen, I don't have this all figured out. I think I laid some of the things out there. I'm seeing some things. I'm optimistic, but I also am analyzing and surveying, and I see some caution signs. And so, and again, it's an ongoing discussion in our family and stuff. Like, okay, well, how are we looking at these things and etc. So anyway, that's what I'm thinking right now. I'll have more on it for sure, I'm sure. But it's very interesting times. Very interesting times. But like I said, overall, I'm optimistic. But by no means, am I not cognizant of the challenges. I think this is a challenging time, and a very challenging time to be a business a leader in general. But I also think that I guess that's just, I believe in people, and I'm an optimist. I believe in the future, and I think that if you can add value, there's opportunity. There's always opportunity out there. You just have to find it. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Love to hear your comments on that. We will continue this discussion because there's a lot to say here. But I guess the overall theme is massive change, more change coming, challenges ahead. Overall, I'm an optimist, but I think that you have to figure out how to add value and be in tune and analyze and find the answers. And I would be doing some reflection right now and some analysis right now and communication, strong communication with people and stakeholders and stuff. So yeah, that's it. That's what I have to say. All right. I hope you all had a great evening. I hope this has been productive. As always, please share it on social media. Please like and subscribe. Thanks so much. Have a nice night. Talk to you soon. Oh, and check all the disclaimers, of course.